Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. Okay, the last time that Meek Mill had a big album splash on Billboard Breakdown on this show, it was the night of the US election back in 2016. And while I'm not gonna say that that's a bad omen right out of the gate, the fact that not only are the charts this late, but because it's this mediocre rapper decided to skew the streaming charts thanks to free streams, that doesn't exactly give me a lot of hope that there's much quality here. Hell, at least when Jay-Z did his whole brand deal this time around, there was quality on the table. 444 was a great album. Still, might as well get through all this. And let's start off with the top 10, where once again, Despacito by Luis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee, and featuring Justin Bieber occupies the number one spot. Now, granted, its margins at the top are still shrinking, but without any real challenger in any category, I'm not seeing what knocks it off the number one at this point. Points to DJ Khaled for trying with Wild Thoughts with Rihanna and Bryson Tiller still at number two, but it's getting handily outstripped on streaming, and the sales still aren't what they should be. And that's not like That's What I Like by Bruno Mars is a serious contender at this point. Propped up pretty much on YouTube and residual airplay, it might have a little bit more longevity, but even that is shrinking. Then we have I'm the One by DJ Khaled and his whole posse, Chance the Rapper, Quavo, Justin Bieber, and Lil Wayne at number 4. Not a lot to say with this, with radio and sales still in free fall. The only thing that's holding it in the top 5 is YouTube, where it did admittedly have a pretty decent week. Then we've got the gains for Believer by Imagine Dragons up to number 5, and I gotta admit I'm pretty surprised how much this has behind it, with consistent radio traction and good sales. Sure, streaming isn't anything stellar, but it's holding up remarkably well there. Managed to push back Unforgettable by French Montana featuring Sway Lee, which took a bit of a hit on streaming and a big hit on sales, but its radio held up enough to keep it at number 6. Held up better than Shape of You by Ed Sheeran at number 7, where radio, inertia, and YouTube are basically the only reasons that this song is holding up. And even then, I can see it being overtaken by There's Nothing Holding Me Back by Shawn Mendes at number 8, with big airplay growth and decent enough sales compensating for the fact that its streaming just sucks. Which, like last week, also a case for Attention by Charlie Puth at number 9. Better sales, less airplay at the moment, and Body Like a Back Row by Sam Hunt forced down to number 10. Weaker in both categories, and is still a steady sign of American cultural decline as the longest running number 1 in country music, without even being a country song, which has to count for something, I guess. Moving on, besides all that, let's focus on better things like our losers and dropouts. And in the latter category, we had a couple big ones this week. Bad and Bougie by Migos featuring Lil Uzi Vert, I Spy by Kyle featuring Lil Yachty, 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars, The Cure by Lady Gaga, Crying in the Club by Camila Cabello, Every Time I Hear That Song by Blake Shelton, and Weak by AJR. Thank Christ. But what seemed to categorize more of our losers this week was Reversals of Fortune, because the only two that continued downwards from last week were The Story of OJ by Jay-Z down hard to 95, and First Day Out by T Grizzly to 84. Beyond that, most of our losers came off of gains last week. Down by Fifth Harmony featuring Gucci Mane, living up to its name at 90, Yours If You Want It by Rascal Flatts to 87, Thunder by Imagine Dragons down to 69, and Fetish by Selena Gomez featuring Gucci Mane to 41. In fact, former Disney princesses didn't exactly have a good week as a whole, with Selena's other song, Bad Liar, dropping hard to 54, Malibu by Miley Cyrus to 42, and Most Girls by Hailee Steinfeld to 72. Actually, she's not really with Disney, and she's a far better actress, so I have no idea why she's trying to make songs in this pop career that feel like they could be coming from a Disney starlet. Beyond all that, the other losers aren't all that surprising. Signs by Drake going down to 98 because I'm fairly certain nobody liked that song. Reminder by The Weeknd down to 100 as it never really was a single that had traction. And My Girl by Dylan Scott down to 52, presumably because everybody finally saw the lyrics and some of their senses managed to return. Why they haven't done the same for Sam Hunt is an utter mystery to me, but okay, whatever. Unfortunately, when we take a look at our gains and returning entries, things get a little bit more complicated. And not just because the best of our gains is probably Bodak Yellow by Cardi B up to 28. Not good, but I'd sure as hell prefer to Bank Account by 21 Savage up to 21, or Mijante by J Balvin and Willie William to 30, or Whatever You Need by Meek Mill featuring Chris Brown and Ty Dolla $ign to 51, or Glorious by Macklemore featuring Skylar Grey up to 85. No, the sad news is that outside of The Fighter by Keith Urban and Carrie Underwood somehow making another return after 20 weeks to 47, we also got a trio of returns for Linkin Park due to the tragic and unfortunate suicidal death of Chester Bennington. And look, I'm sure a bunch of you are wondering why I never really made a statement about that passing. Well, the truth is that while I've appreciated a fair few Linkin Park songs and I've liked a couple albums, I'd never really say that the band impacted my life in the same way that it did for so many other young men my age. I was never really a huge fan of the band. And as such, I didn't think that I was the right person to make that message. My buddy John over at ARTV, he captured the raw emotion way more effectively than I did. And I didn't want to do a disservice by saying something that was only kind of half-hearted. So that said, well, I'm still no really big fan of Heavy with Kiara back to 45, and I never really liked In the End back to 37. Numb, it remains one of Linkin Park's best ever songs, and I easily prefer it back at 34 than the majority, if not all, of our new arrivals. It's a terrific song. I'm happy to see it back. But yeah, about those new arrivals. Strap in, folks. When 6 of the 10 are from Meek Mill and 2 are from the soundtrack of Descendants 2, it's gonna get rough. So we're gonna start off with number 99, Heavy Heart by Meek Mill.
Always kept it real from the very start. Niggas ain't thorough like I always thought. Damn, the game left me with a heavy heart. The streets left me with a heavy heart. Niggas say they with you when they really not. Niggas plot on everything you got. The streets left me with a heavy heart.
You know, I'm still amazed that a rapper is allowed to get any sort of traction in the industry that within the first 4 bars of a verse, he not only rhymes a word with itself, but then flubs the next rhyme in the very next couplet. It's the sort of thing that kind of takes me immediately out of a song that's trying to garner my sympathy for Meek Mill being sad about his success and come up, all the while still bragging about all that success. So why should I feel sorry for you? And the problem, you know what, it's not in the production. It's got some smooth, twinkling elegance and chimes that ride a faint vocal sample on the piano. That's not bad. It's the right sort of sound for this sort of song. No, the problem is that Meek Mill, he can't stay consistently on topic or convince me that he's genuinely hurt by all of these events. Well, it's because that from a delivery standpoint, he's incredibly one-dimensional. But okay, fine, maybe he'll fare better on something a little bit more aggressive, like number 97, Fuck That Checkup by Meek Mill featuring Lil Uzi Vert.
I'm so lit, I fuck that bitch as soon as I met her. Fuck that checker. Young nigga, fuck that checker. Fuck that checker. Like my wrist and my nigga. Fuck that checker. Young nigga, fuck that checker. 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 Fuck that checker.
Okay, at least he's rhyming now, but by the end of the first verse, he's fallen off the damn beat. But okay, fine, Meek Mill, he's at least in his comfort zone and bragging about brand names and complaining about haters in the most basic and boring way possible. And you know what, Lil Uzi Vert, he actually kind of surprised me a bit here by mostly having his rhymes connect. Sure, he's bragging about hitting your cousin and describes a diamond emergency as hitting 9/11, which is precisely the worst way possible to say that, but his haphazard flow at least feels a little bit more refined than his normal basic sloppiness. He's better than average here, and his slightly more elegant blur of melody, it's not a bad fit for this trap beat. But then we get Meek Mill's next verse, where in between the brand names and traveling, he's talking about screwing a girl on an air mattress. I guess the contrast here is that he never had money before, so now he doesn't know how to spend it well or have a lot of class here, which I'm not sure I buy because Meek Mill has spent several albums bragging how much more money he has than everyone, including me, and I'm not seeing anything that remotely implies sophistication or nuance in anything in his bars. Okay, fine, this is at least vaguely passable. What's next? Number 96, We Ball by Meek Mill featuring Young Thug.
They hit your homie and they not the soul. They said that they would ride it out, but ain't nobody roll about it. 3 felonies ain't graduate, no, I am not your role model. I hope a Lord got it.
Okay, why is Meek Mill trying to sound like Young Thug with a more melodic, elongated delivery? It doesn't fit his vocal style, it sounds painfully forced, especially with the auto-tune tacked on, and it doesn't disguise how after establishing that this song is supposedly about his friends who were killed, midway through the verse it switches up to focusing on how he wants to see his crew flossing. It's not a good sign when Young Thug is more on topic than you are. And while I'm never really a fan of cry rapping, where it sounds like your rapper's on the verge verge of tears in order to accentuate that instability of the song. Young Thug, he's not bad at it. Although we could do without that outro hook where it flips to more just bawling around the city. I can say that the production at least makes kind of sense with the song, but at the same time, I'm coming to the realization that Meek Mill is being carried more by interesting guest stars on these songs than anything else. And we got no more guest stars on the rest of the songs in the Hot 100 this week. But before we get to that, number 91, Imitadora by Romeo Santos.
Dime, quítame esta duda. ¿Quién es esta extraña que se ha apoderado de tu ser? ¿Dónde está la amante loca que me erizaba la piel? Porque ya tú no me tocas como lo hacía esa mujer. Algo no anda bien.
Okay, so I don't think I've made much of a secret that most of the Latin music that I've covered on Billboard Breakdown, I'm mostly ambivalent to it. A lot of it just runs together, sounds a lot of the same. But Romeo Santos, he's not one of those guys, and Imitadora is a solid example of that. Most because he's a more ambitious and detailed songwriter, and he actually picked up some peculiar production to go around it. I'm a little bit on the fence whether or not it entirely works, switching from the glossy, darker synths that we wouldn't be able to place on a weekend song, before switching into a more textured Spanish guitar line that actually switches into some bouncy major tones, and it really feels like he's trying to combine about 3 different songs into one. Although, you know what? I'm definitely giving credit to him for actually putting something close to a guitar solo on the song, and you know what? That synth line is ridiculously catchy. I kinda dig it. And the lyrics, they seem to fall into a similarly odd category, as he's trying to seduce a woman who has changed dramatically since he last knew her, and now isn't showing him the slightest degree of the same affection. Maybe something's being lost in translation, it's not really all that special to me, but it's still a little clumsy, but tolerable, I guess. Granted, that's kind of representative of the performer, and I'll be blunt. The biggest hang-up I've always had about Romeo Santos songs is Romeo Santos himself, because his willowy, frail falsetto just doesn't really grip me. At least The Weeknd can bring some smolder, some tightness to his delivery, but Santos is just too delicate on these songs to really suck me in. Still, kind of an intriguing track. I can see this growing on me, so we'll see. I'll take it right now. Number 83, 1942 Flows by Meek Mill.
Even if I ain't do it, they be like, you did it. My teacher always used to tell me you gon' lose, nigga. That's why I never went to school, nigga. And why I'm rapping like I got something to prove, nigga. Went and bought the mansion with the pool in it. Billy with the stab, I get a 2 with it.
Okay, why does Meek Mill think his come-up is interesting, and why even mention that Trump ain't feeling us? He really hasn't said much about hip-hop at all, much more busy screwing up in new and fascinating ways. The sad thing is that there's nothing about Meek Mill that's remotely new or fascinating. He barely stays on beat or rhymes words. He talks about making girls screw their friends, which is all kinds of creepy, thinks that his staccato flow or his singing sounds remotely good, has more aimless brand name bragging while demanding our sympathy, and then he references Damn Daniel. Seriously, all of it's against production that, sure, it's not bad. Meek Mill, he's got a decent ear for backing tones with some darker opulence opposite that piano, but when even that starts to run together, when he can't stay on topic or vary his delivery at all. In other words, Meek Mill might have many, many flows, but I'd be hard-pressed to say that he does any of them justice, because this kinda sucks. Number 81, It's Going Down by the Descendants 2 Cast.
If you don't, it's going down. Let's go, make your move. Reach the war, it's up to you. Give him up and do it now. If you don't, it's going down. We want, go on, or else the king is gone. Your time is running out. You should really watch your mouth. Let's go, pound for pound. We're prepared to stand around. Put your swords up, put them up. It's going down.
There's a part of me that gets why the whole Descendants franchise is a thing with the whole Disney expanded universe or whatever the hell they're calling it. But at the same time, I remember when this stuff was confined to fanfiction.net and its offshoots, and not given a budget for TV movies. And if you read the plot of this stuff, it really does feel like bad fanfiction. But okay, fine. If you go back over the charts for years now, this sort of teenage TV movie crossover, it isn't all that new if there's music attached. The problem is that, unlike a show like Glee, believe these are all original songs. And they're terrible. The sort of songs that are written by studio hacks that are increasingly desperate to appeal to a younger demographic, whereas the truly great Disney songs that people actually remember, they came from composers who knew what the hell they were doing and never felt the need to force modernization when it wasn't needed. Which is why this song, it's got trap hi-hats and a deeper bass and Dove Cameron trying to rap, and wow, it feels awkward. You know what, I'll admit, I'm kind of a sucker for pirate theme music, and yeah, some of the harmonies are not bad, mostly because China Ann McCain, she seems to have some charisma in order to anchor her verses. But look, the entire song feels pretty basic in its writing, better than other Descendants related music I've heard, sure, and there's a part of me that would prefer listening to this over listening to Meek Mill. The harmonies are better, but even for its target audience, it's pretty ridiculous. Just saying. Number 79, Wins and Losses by Meek Mill.
I'm the realest nigga in it, I just happened to rap. When they all thought we was finished, they was laughing at that. So I went and bought me a Dawn and flipped the hat to the back. Fuck, new drag, new whips on the way now. That's your bitch on the way now. Mama told me if you fall, never stay down. Stand up, nigga, I can never lay down.
Okay, I'll be the first to admit that Meek Mill is always at his best with more bombastic, ridiculous production. It's really the only way I can kind of get into his music. And with the big drums and the bells, it's a better fit for his one verse here. His shouty, one-dimensional, lacking any sort of serious grit delivery on that one verse. And it's before you get to his flow, which again feels kind of clumsy as he tries to tear through his bragging and barely stay on any sort of topic. And even if he thinks talking about his foreign cars is boring, why does he keep doing it? And with no serious bass or melodic modulation in his music and voice, it's just not all that interesting to me as a whole, especially when there's no punchlines or standout bars or lines that really draw it all together. Again, this is kind of in the right ballpark, but again, Meek Mill is by far the worst thing about these songs. And on that topic, number 77, Issues by Meek Mill.
I can't trust a bitch cause I got issues. Young rich nigga so official. Next so disrespectful might offend you. Bunch of bad bras on the menu. Bunch of foreign cars when we been through. Next so disrespectful might offend you. When it's time for war, we send a missile.
And now we get a rougher, hollowed out mix before the air horns and the trap beat come in and Meek Mill starts yammering about shooting people, wearing expensive shoes, and trying to carry his hook with autotune that somehow does not make him sound good or interesting. And that's before he raps about making girls kiss his dead friend before we get more auto-tune and verses that just aren't worth remembering. Look, I'm rapidly reaching the point of wondering why the hell anybody likes or listens to Meek Mill. Sure, the beats, they are not bad, but it's not like his content or his delivery or his rapping ability is remotely noteworthy. And the proof that Drake didn't effectively end his career is that I'm still having to deal with this mediocre garbage every 8 or so months. In other words, this is not worth yours or anyone's time. Next, number 61, What's My Name by China Ann McCain featuring Thomas Doherty.
What's my name? What's my name? Feel the power. No one's gonna stop us, so the world will be ours. What's my name? What's my name? What's it? Say it now. All eyes on me, let me see 'em.
Okay, so apparently China Ann McCain is playing the villain in this Descendants sequel, and at least from what I heard on the other song, she's got charisma, she's got personality, so maybe this could kind of work? Well, maybe it could have helped if we didn't get a chintzy synth tune and flimsy snap that feels anchoring the verses before a hollowed out post-chorus that just doesn't really match all that well. And this is where we get the glossy, overmixed bridge that piles on the warping effects and just kind of feels awkward. And sure, McCain, she can hold this song on her own. She's got at least equal pipes to your average mainstream R&B singer these days, and she's not really required to be subtle on this song. But then Thomas Doherty shows up with a very thick British accent for a rap verse, and I'm left feeling that this song is trying to pick up something from grime and just completely miss the point. It's a weird moment on the song, and yet again I see its appeal. Again, it appears that Disney's trying to bring some actual quality this time around. This is better than other Descendants songs I've heard, but I also grew up in the golden era of Disney villain songs, and this is no Hellfire or Be Prepared or Poor Unfortunate Souls or Radigan. Like the other track, I'm probably being more forgiving of this than I probably should be, especially as the lyrics do not hold up to much scrutiny, but you know what? It's kind of passable, if only barely. And finally, number 40, Back to You by Louis Tomlinson featuring Bebe Rexha and Digital Farm Animals.
We're on the ground, we're screaming. I don't know how to make it stop.
You know, it really isn't a good sign when I feel I need to rely on easily the least interesting One Direction member to core quality on the Hot 100 this week. But here we are, with Bebe Rexha playing counterpoint and British DJ Digital Farm Animals providing the whirring trap hi-hats, piano, and more bombastic chorus. And while Bebe Rexha has shown some competency over this sort of production, I'm increasingly convinced that it's just not a good fit for Louis' vocal tone. His voice is too frail and thin to command this sort of chorus, even if the song is trying for more intimacy on the verses, which is kind of a weird fit considering the lyrics are so over the top in their presentation of a back and forth bad relationship. It's playing for melodrama, but the production just does not consistently get there beyond the hook. Overall, look, it's more bland than actually bad, but anyone who thinks that Liam is making the worst or least interesting music coming out of One Direction, yeah, you might want to hear this song. Or don't, you know what, I advise that too. So yeah, this week sucked. Royally. And if my sources are correct and we were delayed for the interchangeable mediocrity that we got from Meek Mill, and yet for some ungodly reason, if this kept Tyler the Creator's new stuff from charting, or maybe even a few passable Lana Del Rey songs, sorry, no excuse for that. So I can't in good conscience give out an honorable mention, there just was nothing here. So best of the week, it's going to the only interesting or halfway competent song being Imitadora by Romeo Santos, with 2 dishonorable mentions, and it's all going to Meek Mill. Worst of the week is easily 1942 Flows, with the dishonorable mentions both going to Heavy Heart and Issues. Let's just pray that we get this out of the way, we drop this as soon as possible. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.